The sign on his cage door was bright red and the letters were bold and black. It said just 3 words: danger, do not touch. But we didn't need the sign to tell us that. We could hear him from the parking lot. It wasn't just a bark. It was a guttural, terrifying roar that shook the metal bars of the kennel. When we walked into the shelter, the staff looked exhausted. They pointed to the last run at the end of the dark hallway. "He's a monster," one of them said quietly. "We can't even get a leash on him. If nobody takes him by 5 p.m. today, he's gone." We walked down that hallway, the sound of rage getting louder with every step. When we finally stood in front of his cage, the sight was chilling. A massive, muscular dog was throwing himself against the door, teeth bared, snapping at the air, his eyes wide with a frantic, wild intensity. He wasn't just angry. He was possessed. Foam was dripping from his mouth because he had been barking for hours. Most people would look at him and see a killer. They would see a lost cause. But when we looked closely, past the flashing teeth and the terrifying noise, we saw something else. We saw terror. He wasn't trying to kill us. He was screaming for us to stay away because he believed we were going to hurt him. We knew taking him was a risk, a big risk. If he bit one of us, it could be a disaster for the sanctuary. But looking at the clock, seeing that he had less than 2 hours to live, we made the choice. We couldn't let him die just because he was afraid. We signed the papers. The shelter staff looked at us like we were crazy. They used a catchpole, a long metal rod with a loop on the end, to get him out because nobody could get close enough to put a collar on him. We loaded his crate into our van, and he lunged at the bars the entire ride home. We named him Tirtin. When we got to the sanctuary, we placed Tirtin in our quietest rehabilitation kennel. We expected him to calm down once he was away from the noise of the shelter, but we were wrong. For the first 3 days, Tirtin was a nightmare. If you even walked past his door, he would charge the fence. He destroyed his bed. He overturned his water bowl. He spent his days pacing back and forth, panting heavily, watching us with suspicion in his yellow eyes. He was in what trainers call the red zone. His brain was stuck in fight or flight mode, and he had chosen fight. The challenge with a dog like Tirtin is that you can't force love on him. You can't just go in and hug him. That would get you sent to the hospital. You have to wait. You have to prove to him very slowly that you are not a threat. So the process began. For the next week, I did something that looks very boring but is incredibly intense. I simply sat. I brought a chair and placed it about 5 feet away from his cage door. I didn't look at him. I didn't speak to him. I turned my back to him and read a book. At first, he went crazy. He barked, growled, and threw himself at the gate, trying to get a reaction. He wanted me to yell, to leave, or to fight back. But I did nothing. I just sat there, ignoring his tantrums, showing him that his aggression had no power over me. After about 40 minutes on the 4th day, the barking stopped. It was sudden. The silence was heavy. I didn't turn around. I listened. I heard him sniff the air. Then I heard a heavy sigh and the sound of his body settling onto the concrete floor. He had finally realized that I wasn't going to hurt him. That was the first breakthrough. The next step was food. Food is the universal language of trust. But Tirtin was so guarded that he wouldn't eat if we were looking. I would slide the bowl under the gate and walk away. Slowly, day by day, I stayed a little closer. By day 10, I was sitting right next to the gate while he ate. He would take a bite, look at me with those intense eyes, growl low in his throat, and then take another bite. He was conflicted. His instinct said attack, but his hunger and his growing curiosity said trust. The real turning point came on day 18. It was time to enter the cage. This is the moment every rescuer fears. Being on the other side of the fence is one thing. Being in the same small room with a 100-pound dog who has a history of aggression is another. I put on thick protective clothes, took a deep breath, and unlocked the latch. Tirtin stood up immediately. His body went stiff. His hackles, the hair on his back stood up. He let out a low rumble, like a distant thunderstorm. I didn't walk toward him. I walked to the corner of the room, sat down on the floor, and looked at the wall. I made myself small. I made myself vulnerable. I was telling him, I am in your space, but I am not a threat. My heart was pounding in my chest, so hard I thought he could hear it. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Titan stood in the center of the room watching me. Then I felt a hot breath on my ear. He was right behind me. I froze. If I moved too fast, he could snap. He sniffed my hair. He sniffed my shoulder. And then he did something that brought tears to my eyes. He nudged my arm with his cold, wet nose. It wasn't a bite. It was a hello. I slowly moved my hand, keeping it low, and let him smell it. He licked my fingers. The monster, the beast, the danger dog, was asking for connection. I gently scratched him under the chin, and his whole body relaxed. He leaned into me, heavy and warm. The armor had fallen off. From that day on, Titan became a different dog. It turned out that his aggression was a mask. Underneath that terrifying exterior was a puppy who had never been socialized. We learned later that he had likely spent the first 2 years of his life chained up in a backyard, teased by kids and ignored by adults. He had learned that the only way to keep people away was to be scary. Once he realized he didn't need to be scary anymore, he didn't want to be. We started Leash training, which was a comedy show. He had never walked on a leash before. The first time we clipped it on, he froze like a statue, refusing to move. Then he tried to walk backward. But with patience and a lot of treats, he figured it out. Taking him for his first walk outside the sanctuary gates was a victory lap. He saw a butterfly and tried to chase it. He rolled in the grass, legs kicking in the air, making happy grunting noises. He looked so silly, so innocent. It was impossible to reconcile this goofy dog with the raging creature we saw at the shelter. However, the psychological scars of abuse don't vanish overnight. Titan still had triggers. He was terrified of men in hats. He was afraid of brooms. If you moved too quickly, he would flinch and cower. We had to work through each fear one by one. We wore hats around him until he realized hats didn't bite. We swept the floor while tossing him treats until he associated the broom with chicken. It was slow work, but watching his confidence grow was the most rewarding feeling in the world. 6 weeks into his rehabilitation, we introduced him to a playgroup. We were nervous. How would he react to other dogs? We put a muzzle on him just in case and led him into the yard with a calm female dog named Bella. Bella sniffed him, wagged her tail, and did a play bow. Titan stood there, confused. He looked at us, then at Bella, then he awkwardly bowed back. Within minutes, they were chasing each other around the yard. The most aggressive dog was actually a social butterfly who just wanted a friend. Now, 3 months later, Titan is ready. He is no longer the dog behind the red danger sign. He is a dog who thinks he is a lap dog, constantly trying to climb onto the couch to cuddle, even though he takes up the whole space. He is a dog who snores loudly and chases bulls, though he hasn't figured out how to bring them back yet. He is a dog who loves unconditionally. But his story isn't just about him. It's a lesson for all of us. It's easy to judge a dog by how they act in a shelter. It's easy to label them aggressive or unadoptable. But Titan showed us that aggression is often just a cry for help. It's a shield used by a soul that is terrified of being hurt again. All he needed was someone to look past the teeth, to sit in the silence with him, and to tell him he was safe. Titan is now looking for his forever family. He needs an experienced owner, someone who understands that he is a big, sensitive boy who needs structure and love. He needs someone who will continue his journey and never let him down again. If you are watching this and you see the good in Titan, please share this video. The more people who see his transformation, the higher the chance we find his perfect match. And if you have ever rehabilitated a difficult dog, tell us in the comments. We want to know what was the moment they finally trusted you. Thank you for being part of the Second Chance Sanctuary family. Thank you for believing in the underdogs. Without your support, dogs like Titan wouldn't make it out of that dark hallway. Like this video, subscribe for more incredible transformations, and we will see you in the next rescue.